Hello, and welcome to Top Posts from r/AskReddit. Reddit Readings, Episode 7. Did you ever snoop through your parents' things as a child and absolutely regret what you found to this day? Not safe for work. My parents got divorced when my dad was caught cheating on my mom. After the divorce, I went to visit my dad in LA. When I was about 13, I decided to snoop through his bin of floppy disks and found a very long story he had typed out during the divorce. In it, he describes graphic sexual acts with the new woman, how his life would be easier if my mom was to suddenly drop dead. Specifically that he would fantasize about the police showing up at his door to tell him my mom was killed in a car accident. I also learned how his AOL name that he'd been using for years is actually just an inside joke between him and his now wife about the length of his dick. He still uses that name to this day. He did find out that I saw it, and he explained that at the time of the divorce he was seeing a therapist who told him to write the story. I think it was meant for the therapist to read and gain some insight into what my dad was going through. I spent a lot of time in closets as a child. My favorite place to be, in the back of our cedar closet. I found the Santa suit, wig and beard. Childhood ended. I ended up finding a quite kinky vibrator or dildo in my grandma's possession. That was 6 years ago, but I still have the image seared into my mind. I found typed letters from my dad to my mum in my mum's room. They had been divorced for a couple years at that time, and the letters said some pretty horrible things about her and about how we were being raised. I'm assuming she was keeping them in case she needed them in court. Oh my god, yes, I was 8. Wasn't really snooping through my parents' stuff, but our family photo albums, particularly with mine and my siblings as babies. First, I got to my brother's. It was so colorful and bright and filled with notes written by my mom. Same with my little sisters. Then I got to mine. It was boring to say the least. Just plain pictures with no notes or stickers or whatsoever. Then I got to the last page. I remember the exact verbatim of what I read in this small piece of blue sticky paper written by my mom. Quote unquote. Is there any more I can say? No, because we really wanted a baby girl. An 8-year-old boy bawled that day. The Joy of Sex book, illustrated. Some of those hand-drawn pictures. Oh no, my poor innocent childhood brain. I also found this book when I was a kid. Instead of being disturbed, it became my secret porn. My dad's journal from before I was born. He was so incredibly depressed. He talked about how my older sister cried on her way to kindergarten and it was the first time he'd been able to relate to her in years. Totally broke my heart. I've never told him though. That was definitely not meant for me to read. Me and my brother found a stack of about 50 Playboys in my dad's closet when I was 13. It was awesome for about a year till he discovered we had been messing with them and got rid of them. Then we were all out of porn again, but it was a very educational year. My dad has had a subscription to Playboy since probably before I was born in the early 80s. They were always in the bathroom to read. He still gets them every month. I grew up reading them and didn't understand why my friends thought it was so funny. I thought all parents had that kind of stuff just around the house. He kept a lot of them in boxes in the attic. I'm pretty sure he saved a lot of the real old ones. They'll be my inheritance, I guess. I found my paranoid schizophrenic father's diary, full of rants, including him accusing my mother of adultery, and her denials. It was just so sad and messed up, a really awful peek inside his mind. I knew he was sick, but to get that honest a look inside was far too much for a 10-year-old. I admitted to my mother what I found. When I went back to look at the notebook another time, I saw she'd ripped out all the pages. We'd run away from him years before. I have no idea why she kept the thing. After my dad passed away, I searched through the browser history on his computer. Tons of porn and websites for ordering black market Viagra. I didn't personally regret finding it, but I know my mom would have, so I deleted the history and never told her. I found a riding crop in my parents' wardrobe. I was like, when the fuck did we get a horse? I found my uncle's suicide note, which revealed a lot of shit about my family I didn't want to know when I was 11. Found some old nudes of my mom when I was like 11. I didn't realize it was her at first. Man, I have never lost a boner faster. I hate to ask, but at what point did you realize? I'd say about a minute in. I flipped it over and there was a note on the back. It was an artsy wide-angle shot so it wasn't obvious. What happened in that minute between discovering the photo and flipping it over? Let's just say I'm not proud of it. Found a letter about a kid my mum gave up for adoption when she was 18. Weird to think my mum had a whole different life before I came along when she was 27. My sister snooped in my mom's journal when she was about 13 and found that my mom had also had a child at 18 that she gave up for adoption. I found out by snooping through my sister's diary. Double snoop scoop. Love it. After my dad passed away, I found some letters sent to him from his family that dated 40 years ago, requesting him to marry his distant cousin so they can, quote unquote, keep the family blood pure. He was 32 and she was 11. Side note, Middle Easterns have this weird thing with marrying underage girls who also are your distant close cousins. I found other letters from his relatives saying that they are cutting ties from him because he refused to marry, and that he is no longer welcomed in the country. They had the power to blacklist him. My dad ran away shortly after the first letter that I mentioned and met my mom, who's Bulgarian, who's also 2 years younger than him, and got married. Honestly, I'm just proud of him. This is a little different. I wasn't exactly going through my parents' stuff, but through their emails because I was trying to find some pictures from years ago. I found an email from my mum to my ballet teacher. I was suicidal from when I was 9 and it was an email detailing why I was being bullied to the point of not wanting to live anymore, and how it made my mum question everything she had ever done or said to me. For a bit of context, I had just had a meltdown about how I hated school and wanted to stab myself with a kitchen knife to get away from what I was feeling. It was very surreal to read it. I can remember going through it, but that email just screamed despair to me and I wanted to hug my mum really tight. I regret reading it because it made me feel like I did back then. I don't care if this gets buried, I just wanted to share what I'm feeling right now. A jumbo box of condoms, a small vibrator, a plethora of porn DVDs, and an unlabeled VHS tape. I regret looking at the VHS. It was porn. Of them. You took a risk. 50-50 could have been a sweet find or horrible scarring homemade porn. Sorry for your mental scarring. I was going through my mom's room and found a container with my baby teeth in it. Came to the conclusion that the tooth fairy wasn't real and later Santa Claus. A bright purple dildo, and that's the last time I went in my father's closet. I wasn't snooping, but when I was about 14 I was helping mom do laundry like I usually did on Saturdays when I was a kid. I went to put away my dad's shirts and found a Costco-sized box of condoms. It was nearly full. On its own that didn't bother me, I knew what sex was and figured my parents did it. The troublesome bit was the following Saturday when I was helping with laundry and saw 3 condoms in the drawer instead of 24. I mean, damn guys, it's been a week. When I was in middle school, my dad had a box at the top of his bedroom closet filled with hardcore porn on VHS. Later, when my folks weren't home, I watched a bunch of it with my friends. It made me very popular. No regrets. Not as a child, but as an adult. I was spending a few days over to my mom's house in the countryside, and she was cleaning up some of her stuff. I stumbled upon a diary that dated back to 1992, when I was barely a year old. I was curious, so I asked her if I could read it. She said yes, but warned me that I might not like what she had written in it at the time. I went ahead and read it anyway, and what I learned was that my father never cared much for me, even back then. He'd still do drugs and smoke pot with me in the next room, and let mom pay for everything pertaining to my needs. I brought the diary to my mom and asked her if my father ever loved me at all. Her diary still in my hand. She sat me down and confessed that when she was pregnant with me, she knew she wanted to have me, but my father never did. What I regret is having the absolute certainty that one of my parents never did love me. Before, there was always a sliver of hope, but now, I know my father never really loved me. Heroin needle, crack pipe. I was 5 or 6. Found my dad's cocaine when I was about the same age. My mother left her diary open once. It was a few years after my father died, and I read just the one entry on the open page. She was sad that I had been having dreams of him comforting me, and wrote that she hadn't dreamed of him once. It made me feel guilty for years. I never told her. My therapist said it was deliberate. When I was little I always liked going in my parents' closet. Their closet is above the garage, so it is massive. There aren't any windows, so I liked going there during the day to be in the dark. They kept a lot of random stuff at the very back, so I always thought it was fun to go through. It wasn't until it got around Christmas time when my parents said I was not allowed to go in their closet anymore, which naturally made me want to go in there even more. I waited until they were distracted with something and went in. I went to the very back where I like to explore and found a bunch of wrapped Christmas presents. A few weeks later I got those same presents but from Santa. This really confused me as an 8-year-old. Why would Santa bring the gifts early just to have to come back later to out them out on Christmas Eve? I guess it must make it easier and definitely would make the sleigh lighter. I found a beer opener that was shaped like a huge black penis. I put it back, but then years later my younger sister found it and asked them what it was. Their faces were red while I tried not to laugh. When I was about 15, we moved from one town to another. While moving, somehow some photographs fell out of the back of the drawer that my sister, 3 years older, and I were lifting out of the van. Our hands were full and we both looked at those photographs spread on the sidewalk. Pictures of our mother with a dog leash on her neck and panties with a hole in which her bleep peeked through. Also more hardcore porn pictures of the woman that we call mom. We looked at each other not sure what to do and proceeded to get that drawer inside. When we got back out, the pictures had gone. Our mom/dad must have picked it up. Or the neighbor. Anyway, no word was ever spoken about it. Even my sister and I never did. The fact that people had to take their film to a store to get it developed. 2. The heck were our parents thinking? Unfortunately, yes. My dad's father was a fighter pilot during World War II. Immediately after the war, he was still flying for the Air Force when he crashed his plane into a mountain and died on his way home from a training mission. My dad had a bunch of artifacts from the wreckage, small things that they could bring off the mountain. It took 2 weeks of searching to find the wreckage, and 5 days of hiking up the mountain to get there, which he got after his mom passed away. I was 14. A couple of years later, I wanted to show the artifacts to a friend. Went in my dad's closet to find them, but what I found instead was a 12-inch long, thick, black dildo. I immediately closed the bag it was in, and never went looking for the artifacts again. However, a few years later, I was about 20, and dating this guy. My parents were out of town for the weekend, so he was staying over at my house. He thought of himself as a musician, and asked if we could record him singing and playing guitar. So, I got out the video recorder, and, not wanting to record over anything important, I played the tape that was in it to be sure. It was a homemade sex tape my parents made. I about died. Thankfully I didn't actually see them doing it, because it was right at the beginning, still fully clothed, making out on their bed. I noped out of that real quick. Never did record him singing, which is fine cause he sucked. I found my mom's journal from around the time I was conceived. I got to read about her feelings for my father, how she wished I was a boy, and her slow heartbreak when my father cut her us out of his life, and then the slow bitterness at me being around. I regret reading it because while I knew I was an accidental baby, I didn't realize how much I wasn't what my mother wanted. I won't ever tell her I read it though, but I still think about it 20 years later. Not exactly Snoop. I was eating breakfast when right on the table was their vibrating cock ring. Today I learned everyone has freaky ass parents. I'm glad I wasn't nosy enough to snoop till after my parents broke up. All I ever found was my dad's pot. Thank all gods. Thank you for listening to Reddit Readings episode 7. If you enjoyed it, consider subscribing.